Hi, this is Tammy Patzer, and I'm really excited to introduce Dezi Koster. Dezi is a Trivedi healer who is committed to applying her gift of harnessing, transmitting, and infusing life force energy into living organisms and non-living materials anywhere in the world through her thought intention to transform and optimize the potential of their inherent nature. And today, many of you probably recognize Dezi because we've had some conversations, but today is a very special day because we're going to talk about you. Important you are, and it doesn't matter if you are just a mom, an individual, a wife, a mother, a significant other, or just somebody who's getting started in life. It isn't about age. It isn't about anything other than you as the human being you are. And I think this is a really interesting topic, especially for entrepreneurs. So Dezi, tell me a little bit more about the you and why you should be your number one VIP client.
So this is something that I found from my own experience and also working with my clients. It's a little bit like when you're, and I use the example of when you're on an aircraft. I worked for many years as a flight attendant, and part of what I had to do was emergency procedure training and many other things. And one of the things was if you have what's called a decompression, that's when there is loss of pressure in the aircraft might drop a significant amount of feet, but it doesn't really matter how it occurs, but there's loss of pressure, the oxygen level drops, the oxygen masks drop out from above your head, and literally you have 30 seconds or less to get that mask on, otherwise you'll go unconscious. So for us, as a flight attendant, we have special oxygen cylinders with a mask. They're literally right where our seats are. You got to get that on, because here's the thing. If you don't put that mask on first, what's going to happen? You'll go unconscious. You can't do anything. You can't help yourself. And you certainly can't help anybody else around you. So this is the same thing. This is the same premise for our life. And this is the same premise in business. If you are not taking care of yourself first, if you're not making yourself the number one VIP client, you're like being on an aircraft. The aircraft is taking you from point A to B. That's like the journey of your life or the journey of how your business progresses over time. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you can have a decompression, you can have a challenge, you can have whatever's going on, and then you're wiped out. Being the CEO of the company or being the head of your life, like you said, you could be the mom. As the mother, you are the person that's the head accountant. You run the kids. You run how everything is going in your life. So if mom's out, what's left? Chaos. So that's the same thing. It's really important that you put the oxygen mask on first. Same thing on a plane. You might have a child next to you. If you're unconscious, there's nothing you can do. So you always, I know a lot of people think, my, that sounds really selfish. Actually, it is selfish not to take care of you. The reason being is other people are relying on you. And again, I'd use the analogy of somebody like me that was trained as a flight attendant. You have 400 people on board an aircraft. If you get wiped out, then those 400 people don't have you to take care of them. The number one thing in working on a plane, it's not for the glamour and it's not for the food. The number one priority is safety. And that safety really, it extends to safety, caring, comfort, making sure everybody is really well taken care of. And that is, again, across the journey of whatever it is that you're doing. So if you think of it from that perspective, if you take really good care of yourself, then you can make sure that those 400 people on the aircraft, if you've got a company, the 400 employees, and everybody associated with your company. Because when you have a company, it's not just the people that work for you. It's not just your executive team, but it's also everybody you're connected with. So it could be vendors, it could be products and services, it could be your clients, it could be something to do with online marketing. So there's a whole slew of things that can be associated with you. And then when you're in great shape, then everybody gets taken care of, including future opportunities, future clients, future contacts that you have. But if you don't take care of yourself, the whole system literally shuts down and suffers. So that's why I thought this was really important to chat about today, to start getting it into your mindset, why it's important to take care of yourself first.
I think that you're onto something, because I know personally I've experienced, you know, I guess you would call it burnout.
Yes.
You know that you have all these responsibilities, yet sometimes you're just like, oh, I can't take one more thing.
Yes.
And pretty soon the whole day has gone by and you're exhausted, but yet it's been like you've been spinning your wheels.
Yep.
You still have more to do. So I really like the idea of people taking care of themselves. Do you have any examples of people who have
besides us, because, you know, we've all done this. We all have the mindset, more is more. But you have to have the Coco Chanel adage, which is less is more. And I'll give you an example from I was working with a client of mine. She had her own business. She was in between getting an assistant for herself, plus getting a second assistant. She was dealing with 4 children, like her kids, business. And so we started discussing what was going on. She was massively stressed, overworked. And I said to her, you don't have any time for yourself, do you? And she began to cry. And I went, okay. So I knew I was onto something. And one of the things that I have always recommended for all my clients, and including myself, is you have to. And this is, there are not a lot of occasions where I say, you have to, you must, you need to. But this is when I absolutely enforce it with all my clients and myself. You have to have the quality me time, and you need to do it every day. So what is that exactly, and how do you schedule, and how does it work in being your number one VIP client? When you work with your number one VIP client, and it might be, you know, everybody has clients that they love to work with. I'm sure you do too. But I know, you know, with some of my clients, I was getting paid $500 an hour. That's a sizable chunk of money. When you're getting paid, you know, really good money to work with somebody, it could be $500, could be $1,000 an hour, could be more, could be less. But when you're working with somebody like that, you schedule them into your calendar. There is absolutely nothing and nobody that you put above them. So a VIP client is, you schedule the time, they're on your calendar, no matter what's going on, you see them at that time. You make them your number one priority. You must do the same thing for yourself. And the first person you put on your calendar is you. So the first thing I recommended is that every single day, and yes, that means 7 days a week, you schedule 1 hour for yourself. It goes on your calendar. It doesn't matter when that hour is, but every day, without failure, you put it on your calendar. You do not ever transgress from removing it. It doesn't matter who says, but Mom, I need you, but honey, I need you, or I don't care who it is. your boss, anybody. During that time, you are with your number one VIP client. They don't need to know that it's actually you. But that way, you're in a meeting, you have an hour scheduled, nobody and nothing transgresses that time. That is sacrosanct for you. And during that period, you can do something that you absolutely love, something that you're passionate about. And it could be you sit and connect with the divine for an hour, or it could be that you dance, you have a bubble bath, you have a massage, you read your favorite material, whatever it is that you love doing. Why? Because that feeds you, that feeds your spirit. So whatever it is that you love to do that every day for 1 hour. So that's the number one thing. The next thing that I recommend for everybody is that the minimum of 3 to 5 times a week, you schedule an hour to move. So that way you get out of here and you get into this. Why? Because when we're always in our head, when we're always focused, again, we get that burnout. When we move, then we actually start stimulating our parasympathetic nervous system. We stimulate the hormones that make us feel good. We get oxygen, we breathe, we clear out toxins out of our system. We are increasing our metabolism, so we feel good. And that moving can be, it doesn't have to be hardcore workout. If that's what you love doing, do some of those. It might be stretching. It might be yoga. It might be putting on music and dancing around the house. It doesn't matter what it is. Do something where you get to move and your body feels good. You're nourishing your body. So again, 3 to 5 times a week, you might go out and walk for an hour, get out in the fresh air, garden, whatever it is. Again, all of this is helping you to move. It gets you out of here. And then the final thing that I recommend is you've got to eat. Everybody needs to feed their body. So a minimum of twice a day. What a concept. You need to schedule, sit down and eat. Even if it's for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, but actually sit down, have a meal where you can just sit down, decompress, and actually enjoy ingesting food, digesting, just enjoy the beautiful experience. Why is that important? Here's something that happens when we eat, and this is not from a Western medicine point of view, but it's from an Ayurvedic point of view. When we eat, we are fulfilling a desire to nourish, a desire to feed our body. And there is a area in our pulse when you do some alternative forms of medicine. You actually take people's pulse, and in Ayurvedic medicine, that's one of the things you do to be able to test what's going on in somebody's physiology. Because in the wrist, or you take what's known as radial pulse, you think of the blood. The blood runs through our body from the top of our head down through the tips of our toes. So this is like a massive river, and it's information about what's going on in all the different organs and systems. So there is one aspect, it's known as sadhaka, which is the emotional heart, but also to do the fulfillment of desire. When we eat, that fills up because we are giving our body what it needs: fuel to live, fuel to grow, fuel to repair, restore, rejuvenate. So that's why it's important to eat. It's fine if 1 or 2 meals a day, you make a smoothie, a really, a dense, highly nutritious drink, and you can put vegetables and fruit and protein and things like that into it. And you can drink that because that's in a liquid form. And if that needs to be on the go, that's okay. However, for at least 2 meals a day, sit, enjoy. And that will allow your body to actually fill up and enjoy that whole experience of eating and nourishing yourself. So that's, there are some things that are really important to do.
I think everything that you're suggesting is really valuable, because if you sit too much and you don't move, your body gets stiff and your breathing is constricted and you don't feel well. And then eating, you're right, eating does, obviously you're nourishing your body, but you're also, it is pleasurable to eat, and it's comforting to eat. And I do know from personal experience that if you're eating high quality, good food that is good for you, your body responds by having energy, by releasing the toxins. And if you're overweight, not eating is probably the worst thing you can do. If you're trying to lose weight, is if you go, or like what I used to do is I would not eat, but then I'd be so hungry that I would overeat, and I would eat the wrong things like bread or carbs or pasta or whatever. And when I eat higher quality or vegetables, fruit, and protein, and I actually am more thoughtful about my eating and I plan it, I find that even if I don't eat a lot, I'm more satisfied with whatever it is I do eat. And it's a more, your life just seems to go a lot smoother when you have a schedule and when you're actually taking care of yourself. Because,
definitely.
It is like, your mind, body, spirit connection. It's like, hey, there's something missing here. If you're not taking time for yourself. And I know for some people, when they think about an hour, it's like, oh my goodness, where am I going to find an hour? But if you schedule it, it is amazing what you can do in an hour if it's scheduled, and how your family or other people, it will start to, it's almost like they'll start to know, that's her hour or his hour, and not to deal with that. But I think all the advice you're giving is really good advice, because it's scheduling that time that you need. And we live in a world where, because of computers, I think that there's an expectation that we're able to produce more than we ever were able to produce before. And there's this expectation of yourself that you say, oh, well, I should be able to accomplish all these things. And for example, I was a newspaper editor. And back in the day before computers, the expectation would be that you would write a couple stories and that in a week you would produce a paper, over 7 days. Well, when computers came along, all of a sudden they wanted us to not only write the story and edit the story, but do all of the typesetting of the story and all of the production. And yes, with the computer, you could do all that, but they compressed it. So now, instead of being responsible for 7 days, you now compressed everything into like 2.5 days, because they were getting that much more work out of you with that excuse. But that's really interesting. So you work with individuals, groups, corporations. Tell me a little bit more about how this concept could be of value, not only to an entrepreneur or a self-employed person, but to a bigger business with their people. Like a corporation.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing, when you're talking about burnout, what happens is there's a certain amount of time or where we are really focused. There is a certain amount of time throughout the day where we're highly productive. and where we can produce the best, we have our greatest amount of performance. But if we're fatigued, if we start getting that burnout, then our mind starts wandering. Instead of being able to produce a certain quality, the quality or our performance starts becoming less and less. And you might be sitting working for, could be 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, but what's the actual outcome? Your actual outcome might be as if you only did 2 hours of work a day. And at the end, what you're going to get is comparable. So if you're thinking of a company, if you've got somebody that's highly alert, highly focused, highly motivated, then you're going to get great results at the end of the day. And this has got to be day in, day out. That's why it's really important that whoever you have from the top layers or the top tier of your executive team down to, the people at the bottom level of your organization. And it doesn't really matter. Every single person is a vital piece. A lot of people think, well, it doesn't matter about this, it doesn't matter about that. I'm going to use this analogy because this is something that, again, we were looking at when it came to safety. And, I'll use the aircraft again, because working on an aircraft is something that you are constantly awake, alert, and aware of, because there's so many parameters that you have to constantly be monitoring throughout a flight that could be 12 and a half hours. It's not as if you're on the ground. If one little thing goes wrong, again, you've got, you're flying, we used to say it was like a tin can flying in the sky, but you've got this tin can hurtling at 300-400 miles an hour, and you've got 400 people on board. So you change the very finite parameters around how that works, you could lose all those people. So it's vitally important that you're always aware. And they gave an example of when you're looking at safety or when you're looking at, business, there are certain things that we miss. They're holes, if you think about it. And imagine if we have work procedures and protocols, and each was a slice of Swiss cheese. I know that might sound a little bit hilarious, but bear with me. So if you have a packet of Swiss cheese and you have them perfectly lined up, all those holes will all line up perfectly. If there is an error, if there's a problem, if you're an aircraft going through those holes, it will go all the way through to the end. And if at the end is a major big mountain, it's going to go through the hole, smash into the mountain, everybody dies. That's a scenario. So one of the things that they started looking at was, how can we start plugging up the holes so that, let's say somebody's forgotten a protocol, forgotten a procedure, something within those protocols and procedures for some reason breaks down, or there's a problem or a malfunctioning, or group A doesn't talk to group B, then you've got backups and backups so that you are covering the holes up. So God forbid you have an aircraft hurtling through the sky and you've got things happening. There's enough crossover between the backups of protocols and procedures so that the aircraft will hit that, get slowed down, and you won't end up with a major catastrophe at the end. So this is the same type of thing. When you're thinking about business or even like your family life, if you take care of the CEO and the people that are the biggest decision makers in a family, mother, then they're the ones that have the greatest influence and impact on how the whole thing functions and runs. So you've got to make sure that they are functioning well. You've got to make sure that the people underneath, that there's good communication between both, that there are forms of backups and protocols, so that all the way along, you're helping to protect the head all the way down to the person at the bottom. And when you do that, then you've got this team. Because when you think of family, when you think of a business, when you think of a corporation, it is a massive team of people. It could be 4 people. It could be 4,000 people. It could be bigger. So if you're always taking care from the top down and from the bottom up, then it's like you are, again, plugging up the holes. So to me, that's part of what this does. It is taking care of the individuals. It's taking care of the teams. So it's taking care of the entire unit, the whole viability. When you look in nature, when you look in a human being, we have what's called homeostatic feedback loops. So it doesn't matter what system is going on. It could be your cardiovascular system, so how your heart and lungs are working. It could be your digestive system. It could be your endocrine system, the hormones. It could be your immune system. If something is off, they're all talking to each other literally every nanosecond. They're all communicating. Why? So that the viability of this whole unit, our body is like a massive corporation. It's a walking universe. So when the whole thing works, communicates, we don't end up with the Swiss cheese problem. And so let's say we're feeling fatigued. What does our body do? Our body closes our eyes. Our body shuts our brain down. Our bodies make us feel relaxed so we can sleep. Why? We might need a nap. You know, when we were chatting before this webcast, Tammy had traveled overseas. We were having this little discussion, and she was commenting a little bit about jet lag. And the thing is, our body needs to recover. It needs to restore itself. It needs to bring back balance and homeostasis. So in order to do that, it will, from our brain to our heart to, you know, top of the head, tips of the toes, every functioning unit, from the atomic particles all the way through this entire big structure that is us, it's constantly communicating, it's constantly balancing and correcting, and whatever we need. If we need to drink water, it starts communicating. I'm feeling dry. My voice is scratchy. So yeah, you know, we get that message. Or, oh, my tummy's talking to me. It's talking to you because you need to eat. So that's the thing. It's really important. In our lives, they are so fast-paced. Like you mentioned, you know, before computers, you took 7 days. Then when computers came in, it was all compressed down to 2.5 days. So it's almost like being a rat on a wheel. You know, you're just running. And we can have the experience of we're running faster, it seems like we're doing more, but the actual outcome is less. That's why you have to take care of this first, because when you do, you're more productive. You feel better. You have more fuel and substance within you to be able to be creative, to be able to be alert, focused, productive. So that's why this is really important. And regardless of whether it is, like we said, in a business or if it is in your family, when you do that, you actually feel much better. That client, once I enforced that for her, the one I was telling you about, after 1 week, I said, that's it. You have to do this. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. Doesn't matter what your husband says, the kids say, you're with an important client. They don't need to know who the client is, regardless of the fact that it's you. So after a week, I spoke to her and she sounded like a different woman. And she said, I feel like I've been on vacation. I said, what a concept. And because she had time to herself. She had time to breathe. She had time to unwind. She had time to unplug from this crazy life that we tend to lead. And that gave her that balance in order to then come back out and be highly focused and productive. And that's why it works.
Again, every time I talk to you, I'm always so impressed with how you're able to apply these concepts to so many different levels of existence, and the family life, the business life, our spiritual life, all of the different things. And the cool thing about our conversations is you've already written a blog post called "Want the Midas Touch, Be Your Number One VIP Client," where it's all in writing what we've been discussing today. So everyone, you can go visit DeziKoster.com and find that blog already there. And I always, everything that you've ever talked about, Dezi, it's like I always have to agree. You're right on target with these things that can apply not only to individual lives, but in a corporate or a bigger business situation or an entrepreneurial situation. And this concept of self-care, I think, is really important, because especially when you become an entrepreneur, it seems like our big fantasy of being of freedom and having time and being in control, we often end up working 7 days a week, sun up to sundown and beyond. And because now we have to rely on ourselves so much, but it does apply. And sometimes we think, oh, if I take that hour, I won't get as much done. But the truth is, if you don't take time for yourself, you are on a very slippery slope. And burnout is not any fun when you're just so exhausted that you can't function anymore, because you've literally used it all up, all of your reserves. So Dezi, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Sure. So they can write comments on the website. On my website, you can reach out to me via email. So it's dezi@dezikoster.com, or you can phone me directly. The number there is 707-702-3394. And then that way, we can have a chat and follow up. The other thing, that's really important, whether it's business or family life, relationships are tantamount to us feeling good. Like you mentioned, self-care. The number one relationship is, it's our relationship with the divine. It's our relationship with ourselves. And then it's relationship with our loved ones. And when you're burnt out, you've got nothing to give. There's nothing there. But when you give yourself that, then you've got juice to feed everybody. And that's the key thing to keep in mind. If you're juicy, then life is beautiful. So that's something that's really important.
I love that, your juicy life. That's a whole nother topic about being your number one client. Yeah. So I'll let you go now, Dezi, but everyone, again, DeziKoster.com. If you've been intrigued by any of our conversations, reach out to Dezi, because I think that, you could really get some insight into how Dezi might help you with, that divine connection, for example, and how that makes a huge difference in your life. Again, individuals, businesses, entrepreneurs, or even corporate wellness, there's so much to talk about and to uncover. And so again, Dezi, I've really enjoyed the conversation with you today.
Thanks, Tammy. It was great.
Okay, thank you.